Hi, you're listening to Everyday Superpower. Take some time to understand the benefits of correctly analysing and observing nonverbal communication and body language. It's a means that you'll be able to identify who's lying to you, who's attracted to you, and generally be able to make you a better communicator all around, whether it be the workplace, whether it be at a family gathering, in between friendship groups, meeting a stranger, so on and so forth, alongside analysing your own behaviour and being able to put out the correct signals in the correct environment. If you enjoy what you hear, I would advise you press subscribe, purely as I am putting out regular content, and it really is learning a superpower. It's like mind reading. So I hope to see you next time. Moving on. Why do people suck and chew on pens? I'm sure you've seen it before. I'm sure you've seen it in school, in the workplace, in your general day-to-day when somebody has to hold a pen. They put it to the mouth. Now, whether it goes in the mouth or stays on the lips, it doesn't matter. It's still the same gesture, okay? So, we can call this mouthing an object, or quite simply a chewing or a sucking on an object, alright? And when I say object, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pen. It's just pretty common and quite blatant. So, objects can include the pens, can include fingers, alright? It can be a cigarette, to be fair. It's an object of the same stature and it reaches the lips. It might not even be sparked at this point. So what does it mean? So, it's a self-pacifying behaviour, okay? If anything, it could be one of the purest forms of pacifying behaviour, as the term is in relation to a baby's pacifier. So it's a regressive behaviour. What this does is this subconsciously regresses an individual back to an infantile stage where perhaps to comfort themselves they would have sucked on a pacifier. In the United Kingdom we call them dummies, and maybe even to a degree where it regresses an individual to the comfort of the mother's breast. The nipple, if you wanted to consider that, that's still a very valid regressive standpoint where it could take the individual back to. You will only see this behaviour during anxious and slightly uncomfortable times. It's not a pure display of true shaky nervousness. It can be, but it can be sparked purely through a degree of, slight pressure and so on and so forth. I remember personally, I used to see it a lot during school tests. So when people were taking exams and they had to think, and there was pressure on them to get a good grade, so you would see this behaviour quite a lot. Alright, it tends to go hand in hand with a person who is deep in thought. Obviously, they can't really be communicating too well verbally at the same time as they've got a object covering their mouth, so it wouldn't be beneficial. And I'm sure it would raise awareness that they were doing it. All right, and this isn't necessarily a conscious behaviour. It happens on the outside of the person's awareness for the most part. All right. So, the famous psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud would perhaps consider this oral fixation. So fixation of the oral, the mouth orifice, which can also expose itself with eating, potential eating disorders, smoking, and sort of a more prominent display of oral behaviour throughout life, if not a lack of it, which just exposes the other side of it. Alright, it's still a extremity to some degree. So, as we've discussed, this will be a real common reoccurring theme. It is one of the boldest foundations of nonverbal communication. I reference it a lot, and I will reference it a lot coming up. I just know I will. The mouth and the lips are full of nerve endings. So, what have we discussed when we've spoken about nerve endings? Nerve endings, when they are touched, they engage positive endorphins and fight against stress. So when we speak about pacifying behaviors and self-soothing behaviors, we tend to talk about self-touch and on a subconscious level, touching yourself in a point where it takes you back to either an earlier time or just quite simply feels good. All right, the face is full of nerve endings covered in it. Same with the neck. So you'll see a lot of neck touching, a lot of face touching, a lot of arm touching, a lot of leg touching, covered in nerve endings. It's a great fight against stress. And that's why you see this behavior. The touching of the lips is, of an incredible benefit when you're feeling under pressure, because it gives you a little bit of a boost in the old brain department, So one thing it could also be as well, it could be a replacement for the phallus, but that would be on a sexual element. In this particular case, we're talking about stress and anxiety and why you see it most commonly. You're gonna look across a room and someone's not even gonna know you're there, and you might see this behavior. So we're not talking about communication between people where it can be, influenced by sexual means. But yeah, it can be. We will talk about that later. It comes hand in hand with cigarettes as well. Does the sexual aspect of it, so we will talk about that. But just to re-clarify, just so you can really understand what's going on when you see this behavior, okay? The mouthing of an object, so the chewing or the sucking of an object, if not the object placed against the lips, is in response to anxiety. It can be in response to nerves, and it's a self-soothing behavior, okay? It's a pacifying behavior. So this behavior in particular, if you were to look at this grown-up as a baby, what that baby would be doing is sucking on a pacifier, all right? To cool itself down, to relax, to calm down, all right? That's what this behavior represents. The sucking of the pen is the same as the sucking on a pacifier or a dummy as a child. Or maybe even sweets, if it cools a child down, it's the same result. The lips and the mouth are covered in nerve endings which just feel good. They just feel good. But there's no need to rub these areas if you're feeling good already. It's in response to a negative stimuli. So I hope this has been a benefit. If you like what I do, press subscribe. Thank you.